going to look at paragraph formatting today. Paragraph formatting is important because it helps the person who has to read whatever you're writing understand the work better. What you have on the screen in front of you is the same page. One has paragraph formatting in it, one doesn't. The view on the left is formatted. The view on the right is not. If you look as we scroll through it, the view on the left is easier for somebody to read, look through, make comments, understand, find information in. The view on the right becomes more difficult. Now if you notice both pages moved as I scrolled through it, that's because under the View tab, besides having the view side by side, I also have clicked the synchronized scrolling. If you unclick that, then you can move one page and the other. When it's clicked, then both pages move together. That being said, we need to look at what we need to do to this document in order to make it so our reader can understand it. So the first thing, if you remember back when you first learned to do paragraphs, you need to indent the first sentence. The easiest way to do that on here is to highlight all the text. We're going to go to the paragraph dialog launcher box. There are 3 ways to get there. The first way is the Home tab, Paragraph Group, and you click. You get the dialog launcher box. There is also, under Page Layout, a Paragraph Group again. If you click that dialog launcher box, you get the same dialog box. The third way to do it is to do a right click, and then you will notice there's paragraph in here. What we want to do is go to indentation on the dialog box, and we want to click first line. It will default to 0.5 because that is a standard indent when you are typing a document. It is 5 spaces. Now if you look, all my paragraphs have indented 5 spaces. So it's a little bit easier at least to find the paragraphs. There is another way to do this, so I'm going to undo. And if I didn't want to go to the dialog box, and if you notice on the ruler there's 2 little arrows. There's a little arrow on the other side. These control your margins and your indent. So if I move this 5 spaces, it gives me the same effect as if I went to the dialog launcher box. If you look, by doing that, it automatically puts it in. So hold on, I want to show you that. If I go to the dialog launcher box, it says there's no indentation. If I move this arrow and go, now it's telling me I've indented the first line by 0.5. Now I want to show you what a hanging indent is, because it's slightly different. We're going to do this through the dialog launcher box. We're going to tell it to do hanging. If you do hanging, it also generally does it by 0.5, 5 spaces. Now the first sentence sticks out, and the rest of it is moved in the 5 spaces. If you notice, our arrows change position, so the bottom arrow is now indented 5 spaces. That's not typically what we want to do, so let's get back to our typical paragraph, which is a 5-space indent. There may come a point where you want part of your paragraph or one of your paragraphs to emphasize it by bringing it in a little. You can do this a couple of ways. You can move the arrows to bring it in, and I'm bringing in each side 0.5. So now, if I wanted the goals to stick out, I can go and make them go in. By opening the dialog box and looking at indent, if I do a left, it's going to move everything on the left in the paragraph I've selected, whatever I choose. So notice it all moved left. And then if I tell it to do it on the right, it's going to do the same thing. So now the paragraph is lined up. On this one, if I were to do something like that, I typically wouldn't have the spacing. I'd want it just to look like a box. So I'd usually not do an indent on the first line. There is also something called a negative indent. A negative indent, we're going to go to this paragraph, would be if you wanted it to go into the margin. You want it to go in. You would go the down arrow. Notice how a negative sign appears. We're going to do each side -5, so you can see what happens. Notice how it sticks out, and now I don't have the nice margin that I had over here. Now my margin has gotten smaller. We've gotten rid of that. I've been using the undo key to back out of some of these. So a negative indent puts it into the margin. A first line indent gives you your nice little paragraph indentation that you've been using since elementary school. 0.5 equals 5 spaces, which is the average. You may also tab. If you use a tab key, if I use the tab key, it automatically, now you notice this little box with the lightning bolt? That has a down arrow. It gives you a chance to auto format and control auto format. We will get into this at another time, but I just want you to be aware it's normal to get that if you use the tab or if you do certain commands. The next thing I want to go over is alignment. You have alignment here, and if you notice there's a Control L that tells you left align. That means everything's going to line up along your margin over here. So we're going to start with this just one line, which is the title of the paper. If we want it aligned to the left, we can click here. You can also go into the dialog launcher box and notice there's an alignment. So you have a left align here. You can do in the dialog box left align. You have centered, right, justified. Centered is right here. If you look, Control E is centered. Control R is right. Right align actually takes everything and lines it up on the right side. So left align puts it in the left, right puts it on the right, centered centers everything. Those are your typical ones you use. There is another one called justified. What justified will do, look at this paragraph. Notice when I click justified, it spreads things out. It adds extra spaces between words. It's going to make my text look like a box, lined up perfectly on all sides. Notice in a regular paragraph, you have uneven, ragged edges. If you wanted everything to line up in a box, you would use justified. Now I've been highlighting paragraphs, but watch. If I take the justified off, as long as I'm clicked in the paragraph, because we're using a paragraph tool, whatever I do in here affects the entire paragraph. I don't have to highlight the entire paragraph. I just need to click in it